Welcome, PreAlgebra students. This is Ms. Tracy. We're in lesson 53, and we're going to talk about percent today. A long time ago, as you've learned from Miss Mona in history, the language spoken by the ancient Romans was Latin. The Latin word for by was per, and the word for 100 was centum. So when we put these words together in English, we say percent. And percent literally means out of 100. So, when we talk about 10% of something, when we say 10%, this is the symbol for percent. What we're literally saying is 10 out of 100. And there's a way that we can write that as a fraction like this that says the same thing. 10 out of 100 or 10 100ths. Now we know if we take this and we put it on a calculator and we treat this fraction here like a division problem, which is what a fraction is, what we end up with is 0.1. And that is how we turn 10% into a decimal. So we're going to practice a few of those right now. Let me clear this. You're probably going to write this down because you want to know that definition, and you're going to want to put that symbol in there so that you can remember this. You guys should be having a notebook with notes at this point with all the stuff you've learned in it. Let me clear the page. Pause if you need to take notes. We're going to do a little table that teaches us how to change percent into a fraction and a decimal. So you're going to want to put the percent sign at the top, and then you're going to put an F right here, and then you're going to put a D here for decimal, right? This is what we're doing. We are going to just say our percent. So in this case, let's say 25%. Make the little symbol. And our fraction would be 25 out of 100, right? Same thing as 25%. But when we divide that, we know that it's going to be 0.25. You could pull your calculator up. Let me get mine to come up. And I could show you exactly how to do that. Basically, what you're doing is you're just moving the decimal. Here we go. So if we take 25 and divide it by 100, we get 0.25. So that's the decimal that we want to use. So we could do, let's do 40%. Let's do 15%. And let's do 110%. You know, you hear people say, I'm going to give 110%, which is hard because 100% means everything. Means all of it. Some people say they're going to do 110%. That means they're going to do everything they have, and then they're going to push a little bit harder and do some more. So if we take 40% and we put it into its fraction form, it's 40 over 100, because that's what percent means. We could take 15%. We put 15 over 100. We take 110 even, and we put that over 100. The fraction on the bottom doesn't change just because this number gets bigger. It's still, percent still literally means out of 100. It doesn't change, okay? Out of 100. Now let's put that in our decimal form. So if you look, it really looks like we're just moving this decimal place 2 times, right? So 2 times, 2 times, 2 times. So if you think about it, however many zeros you have, whether it's 10 or 100 or 1,000, however many zeros you have, that's how many times you're going to move the decimal. So let's go ahead and make a guess that this is going to be like this. This is going to be like this. And this is probably going to be like this. So let's see. Let's use our calculator to check it. All right. So let's look at 40 over 100. 40 divided by 100 equals 0.4. 15 divided by 100 equals 0.15. We did that right. We did that right. And 110 divided by 100 is 1.1. So that's how we would turn a decimal or a percent into a decimal. It's also handy to know, because sometimes you're going to want to use the fraction form as we get into higher math. You're going to want to know how to keep it in a fraction, because maybe your problem that you're working with has fractions everywhere else and you just want to put it in the same format. So we could take a percent, we can turn it into a fraction, or we can turn it into a decimal, remembering that this literally means out of 100. What I like to do is remember you got a 0 here and a 0 here and a 1 here. Well, 1, 0, 0, that's 100. So that just was a little thing that a little trick I used to use to remind me what went on the bottom. So whatever you need to use visually as a reminder, that's what you do. So put this example, this whole thing, put this example in your notes so you can remember how to turn percents into fractions and decimals. I'll give you just a couple of seconds. And then we're going to do some practice problems. All right, I'm going to clear the page. If you still haven't gotten it all down, pause and write it down. So example 53.1. What is 1% of 7,500? We have two problems. So the first one is, what is 1% of 7,500? So the thing we have to remember is how to read this, right? And how to turn this into a decimal, because that's going to make all the difference. And I put the percent back here, and it should be a question mark. Habit, just a habit. All right, so what signifies that we don't know what that is? That's like saying what number, right? So that's our variable. Is our equal sign. 1%, so we had 1%, right? We turn that into a fraction, so that's 1 over 100. We move the decimal place 2 times, that's 0.01. So we put our decimal in, 0.01, and then we know that of means multiplication, so we're going to multiply times this number here. So we'll put that in parentheses to show our multiplication. Okay, because parentheses means multiplication. And if you're not used to seeing it like that, if that doesn't make sense to you, you can write it like this with the multiplication symbol times 7,500. That means the same thing as the parenthesis. Okay, now the reason we use the dot here instead of an X is because once we start using the variable X, we don't want to get these two confused. We don't want to mix them up. So in math, when we start using variables, we switch to using this dot to mean multiplication, or we use parentheses. It just makes it a little bit more clear and less likely to confuse those two things. So now we just pull up our calculator, right? And we say, boom, 0.01 times 7,500. That's 75. So 75 is 1% of 7,500. Isn't that easy? Oh, you guys, these are so easy. 0.1, that was 0.1a, this is 0.1b. There's another one. So this one says, what is 34, and I'm going to make the symbol here instead of writing the word because this pen likes to jump around, of the same number, 7,500. So what is 34%? So let's go over here. 34% becomes 34 over 100, which means, boom, boom, we put the decimal in front of the 34. All right, so that's our decimal. So what is our variable? Is our equal sign. 34%, we're going to use the decimal because it's easier to multiply. And let's just use parentheses this time. 7,500, because it means the same thing as the dot. So now we just bring up the calculator. In PreAlgebra, it is okay to use the calculator, especially when it gets complicated. 0.34 times 7,500 equals 2,550. So x equals 2,550. Easy peasy, right? Right. Okay, let's do 53.2. Let me clear this. We have another A and B. So A says, what is 1% of 67? So we've already done 1%. We know that 1 over 100 is equal to 0.01, right? So what is our variable? Is our equal sign. Excuse me. Goodness. We put in our decimal, and then let's use a parenthesis just because it's easier to write. And that's our problem. So now all we have to do is multiply. So we pull up our calculator, we clear, we say 0.01 times 67 equals 0.67. X equals 0.67. Easy peasy. Okay, y'all could do these in your sleep. I think you're going to get the hang of them pretty quick. You just have to think about what this is saying and what each part means. We got one more. What is 140% of the same number, 67? So we do our percent here. 140 over 100 is equal to, boom, boom, we move it 2 places, so 1.4 is going to be the decimal we use. What is our variable? Is means equal. We put our decimal in for 140, and then we multiply times 67. We pull up our calculator, eventually, and we say 1.4 times 67, 93.8. So X is equal to 93.8. So now we know the answer to this question. All right, so that's all we have for lesson 53. You guys can make up your own percentages and numbers and practice and play whenever you get through with the practice problems that are attached to this module. All right, I will see you in lesson 54.